Hello and welcome to episode 7 of The Noise in Your Head. I'm your host, Josh Timko, here to bring you the latest in indie music news, reviews, and recommendations. Up first, it's story time. The date is December 2nd, 2016, and I'm standing in a tiny music venue / bar somewhere in Brooklyn, New York. I'm alone because no one that I knew was interested in the band I was there to see, a band by the name of Steady Hands. I walked to the back room where the actual music will be played, which consists of 4 concrete walls and a knee-high stage at the front of the room. I'm leaning against the wall, glued to my cell phone, one of maybe 10 people in the room. Soon enough, one of the openers, whose name I can't remember, walks in and starts tuning on the stage. This is when he walked in. Jake Ewald of Modern Baseball and Slaughter Beach Dog fame stood in the center of the room alone and pulled out his cell phone. He was smiling at something, and he was taller than I had imagined. I spotted some girls across the room ogling and whispering, plotting to make their move, but they were too nervous. I shared their nervousness. I had no idea that Jake was going to be at this show. I know he had a part in Steady Hands, but he hadn't been at any of the previous shows on their tour. But that night just happened to be my lucky night. I wasn't going to let those teenage girls get the first word in, so I walked up to Jake and I said hello, and I said that I was a big fan of his work and probably some other stuff that I can't remember. He was gracious, shook my hand, looked me in the eyes, and seemed genuinely pleased at this encounter. The first act began to play, and I watched, standing next to Jake Ewald. Later in the night, after we had gone our separate ways and I was back to leaning on the concrete wall, I thought of something I'd wish I'd said to him. I completely forgot to mention how much I love Slaughter Beach Dog's album, Welcome, and how well written it was. He walked in, and I knew I had to do it. I walked up to him, and I said, "Hey, Jake, it was going to kill me if I didn't come up to you and say this." And I continued on about Welcome and how I thought that it was one of the best written albums of the last 5 years or so. He thanked me, asked what my name was again, and I said I didn't want to bother him any longer. And so I walked back to the wall where I enjoyed the rest of the show, and Steady Hands put on an incredible performance. Still to this day, seeing someone I admire stand in a crowded room alone and smile at his cell phone gives me a strange sense of relatability to him. That this man, who has played his music in front of thousands and thousands of people, was standing alone in this room and was perhaps waiting for someone to approach him, was a moment that I will remember for a long, long time. In case you haven't figured it out, today I'm going to be giving you my review of the new Slaughter Beach Dog EP, Motorcycle.jpg. With this new release, Jake Ewald, the head honcho of Slaughter Beach Dog, has continued on the path of remarkability, if that's even a fucking word. Every single song on this EP is fantastic, and it's a tragedy, a real tragedy, that there are only 4 of them. Jake has once again proven that he is one of the most powerful songwriters of the last decade or so. Every song has an infectious melody, incredibly vivid lyrics, and catchy instrumentals, and you bet your ass we're about to dive into a track-by-track review. The song Your Cat, which you just heard a snippet of, was an early favorite on an EP of all favorites. Jake once again paints such a charming and vivid picture of the setting and the character singing. One of the things about Slaughter Beach Dog that, to me, makes it such an interesting project is that this is Jake's chance to flex his storytelling muscles and really step outside of himself for a bit and let the narrator of the song vent out his or her own problems and experiences, which may or may not be derived in part from Jake himself. In this song, we get a glimpse of a man who's in a relationship, a man who is observing the world around him, reflecting on that relationship, and maybe just the state of his life up until this point. Is it going where he wants it to? He's not sure. I love the verse where he talks about being at the doctor's office and lying to him about how much he's drinking. And basically saying, what do doctors know anyway? I mean, I went to college too, man. I know shit. You don't know everything. It's a fun, bouncy song that's tied down to earth with these gloomy lyrics, like how sometimes he wishes that, like the other kids on campus, he could be living by the sea, or how he wishes to be reincarnated as his ex-girlfriend's cat, or the final line about how he goes to church sometimes and tries to understand these erotic nightmares that he's been having about her. The girl, not the cat, obviously. Immediately, this song struck me as one of Jake's best. There's a real wholesome quality about it, and the fact that I'm not entirely sure that Jake isn't the one narrating the song keeps the mystery and experience alive and that much more interesting. And this was honestly just a fantastic opener to the EP.
Forget to spit out the seeds. I'll make it through this if it kills me. Then when it kills me, I'll come back. Jesus will make me a disciple, or maybe he'll let me be your cat. I'll wait to be led into temptation as I lay a load across the street. Catherine is smoking pot above me, watching Hellraiser on TV. Tomorrow I'm driving to Chicago. Tonight I am kneeling from the pew, still doing all I can to understand one more erotic nightmare about you.
Next, we have the song Glowing.
Be ashamed if I drown in the house that I grew up in. I was practicing my swimming when the drugs went to kick in. So when I'm over at your house, I would pick through the lost and found, 'cause you got something.
This song is actually a cover of a song originally by a band called the Super Weeks, who Modern Baseball did a split with not that long ago. The original has a louder, punkier vibe, for sure, and what Jake has done with this cover is stripped it back a little bit, slowed it down, and in my opinion, actually improved the song. I do prefer this version to the original, if only because the lyrics sort of warrant a slower take. I'm not exactly sure what the song might be about, but the way that I hear it is that it's about someone who's moving away from their childhood home, and our narrator is sad to see them go, but they know that it's best for them and that they'll be happy when they get to wherever they're going. That's at least how I read the song. Jake's rendition is melodic and emotional, and it's just a great addition to the EP. Although even though he didn't write it, I think it's definitely a great song to have on the EP. I don't have much to say about it. I don't want to go too far into it because I know that Jake didn't write it. I just think that Jake did a really great cover of this. Up next is the song 104 Degrees.
I saw her in a dream, exiting the bookstore lobby, sitting on a bench on Baltimore and reading Murakami, slick with salt beneath the sun, her hands now tying up her hair. One pair of deeply tinted shades reflects my unbelieving stare, and at once I am taken. She asked me what I wanted.
Another one that really stood out to me because it felt so different from the others. It paddles on with a steady drum beat and Jake delivers his vocals in an almost spoken word, monotone-like style. He's telling the story about a dream in which he sees this girl reading a book, and he basically falls in love immediately. They talk for a bit, they go get some coffee, and they decide to settle down for good. They hop in a taxi full of all their things, and they ride off into the sunset. Here, like on this whole EP, Jake is showing off in the best way possible. He has such a way with words and such a knack for storytelling that it's impossible not to be transported into the situation. This song, and again, this whole EP, is all about the little details. The woman reads Murakami. She takes her coffee hot and black. She smiles at him discreetly. She wears dark sunglasses. He creates these characters with such depth in such a little amount of time. Even the taxi driver, I could imagine as a real person, and he only gets mentioned in 3 lines of the song. On a deeper level, this song to me is sort of a meditation on the idea of the fantasy girl or man, whoever. The fantasy relationship. It's a cute song until you go back to the very first line, which says, "I saw her in a dream." And all of that cuteness, you realize, is just a fantasy. This is literally the girl of his dreams, one that does not exist, a realization that I think a lot of people come to at some point in their life. It reminds me of that scene in High Fidelity where John Cusack tells his girlfriend that he's proposing to that he's done searching for the fantasy girl because that's all she is and that's all she will ever be.
That other girl or other women, whatever. I mean, I was thinking that they're just fantasies. You know? And they always seem really great because there's never any problems. And if there are, they're cute problems, like, you know, we bought each other the same Christmas present, or she wants to go see a movie that I've already seen, you know? And then I come home, and you and I have real problems, and you don't even want to see the movie I want to see, period. And there's no lingerie. And
I have lingerie.
Oh, yes, you do. You have great lingerie, but you also have the cotton underwear that's been washed 1,000 times, and it's hanging on the thing. And they have it, too. It's just I don't have to see it because it's not in the fantasy. Do you understand? I'm tired of the fantasy because it doesn't really exist.
However, that's just how I read this song. Maybe someone else, one of you, will have a less pessimistic interpretation. If so, let me know what you think.
When we merge onto the freeway, she rolls her window down completely. The driver dials into a station, and then she smiles at me discreetly. She says, "I love this song," then turns away, tracks the clouds. The driver curses with conviction, while heavy metal drummer plays us out.
So the final song on the EP is Building the Ark.
I open my eyes and it's November, and I'm in a freight elevator, and I'm in Las Vegas, but I haven't won any money, and everyone here is wearing clothing that I find.
So I talked about this song a bit a few episodes back because this was the only single to be released in promotion for the EP. I talked about how it feels very Lynchian, very dreamlike, a lot of odd descriptions and wandering, you know, the melody, the lyrics, the bouncing instrumentals, not to mention the killer guitar solo at the end of the song, all make this probably one of Slaughter Beach Dog's best songs, in my personal opinion.
Somewhere, son, inside your heart, there is a teensy tiny part of you that sure could use some coffee. Yeah.
This is an EP where I find it incredibly difficult to pick out favorites because every song is a knockout, and each one feels different enough that it keeps things interesting throughout. One thing that keeps coming back to me, or perhaps you may have noticed I said one word in particular throughout this review, and that word is dream. This EP tends to have a heavy focus on the idea of dreams, and I think that the lyrics do a fantastic job at painting a wide array of dreamlike images and scenarios. This is not an easy feat because when trying to convey the absolute feeling of a dream, not just telling of a dream, but the feeling of a dream through music, and to do it accurately as well as keeping it melodic and fun is incredibly difficult. And Jake is worthy of all of the praise that I can give for this project, and this makes me even more excited for the full-length LP that should hopefully be coming later this year. His oddly specific, mundane storytelling style never gets old, at least not for me, and one of my favorite things to do is wonder what elements of these songs are personal to Jake and which are pure fantasy. And he is no stranger to delving into the world of fiction. This EP is a great companion to their debut last year, Welcome, and continues our voyeuristic look into the characters of Slaughter Beach. Now, by now you can tell that I love this thing. So once again, the EP is called Motorcycle.jpg, and you can get it from Lamo Records. The links will be in the description, of course. And let me know what you think of the EP. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with anything I've said? If not, please let me know. I'm always open to criticism.
So in my dreams, I'm not so good at fighting. There's this one where you and I are making brilliant love inside a 7-Eleven just past the city. And I can't save us when that guy gets up and jumps out from behind the counter, gun in hand and grinning.
All right, moving on to rapid fire news. Up first, we have the new Japanese breakfast album Soft Sounds from Another Planet. Japanese Breakfast, the solo project of Michelle Zauner, is an indie experimental dream pop project, and her debut album Psycho Pomp came out last year to rave reviews. I saw this thing on countless top 10 lists all over the place. This new one I actually like quite a bit more, actually. It's a little all over the place in terms of genre. It doesn't stick to one sound, and Zauner really sounds better than ever, more confident, and I'm excited to give this a closer examination in the future. Once again, the album is Soft Sounds from Another Planet by Japanese Breakfast. The band Waxahatchee, yeah, you heard that right, Waxahatchee, released their album Out in the Storm with Merge Records.
I spent all my time learning how to defeat you at your own game. It's embarrassing. I walk around like
Waxahatchee was formed by Katie Crutchfield, sister of Allison Crutchfield, who were in P.S. Eliot. I don't know if any of you know them. So Waxahatchee is an indie folk rock, alt-rock, punk band from Alabama. And this new album over here is some really it has some really powerful stuff on it. Right from the very beginning, it just rocks, man. And it keeps it up throughout. Once again, the album is Out in the Storm, and the band is Waxahatchee. You guys can go pick that up. Links will be in the description. Bombay Bicycle Club frontman Jack Stedman released a solo project under the moniker Mr. Jukes called God First. Featuring an impressive array of guest vocalists. I haven't given this thing a full listen just yet, but what I have heard, some of the singles that were released, has intrigued me quite a bit. I especially like the opener and the song Angels / Your Love, featuring some amazing horns and BJ the Chicago Kid. I know that it didn't get too favorable a review on Pitchfork, and I'm curious to see if I agree or not. I believe that the main criticism was something like that it wasn't taking enough risks. Maybe the author just wasn't given what they wanted, so they gave it a bad review, because, not taking risks isn't really a punishable offense in my mind. But yeah, this thing sounds good so far, so go check it out. Let me know what you think. Once again, the album is God First by Mr. Jukes. Together PANGEA is a California rock band that is coming out with a new record called Bulls and Roosters. And they've released 2 singles that have me pretty excited for what they have in store. That album comes out August 25th, and the 2 singles are Better Find Out and Money on It. They have a nice surf rock vibe going on, reminding me a little of Fiddlar or the Orwells. So, go check them out. Once again, that album is Bulls and Roosters. That comes out August 25th, and the band is Together PANGEA. So you may not be aware of Declan McKenna. I have known of Declan McKenna for about a year now, maybe. He had a song called Brazil that came out last year, I think, or the year before. I don't know. Declan McKenna is an 18-year-old singer-songwriter from the UK who has had quite a wild life up to this point. So I'm just going to read a little bit from his Wikipedia page. McKenna entered the Glastonbury Festival Emerging Talent Competition. The festival named him the winner of the contest in April 2015, for which he was awarded a €5,000 prize and a slot on the festival's William Green stage. NME called him one of the most sought-after new acts in the United Kingdom after his win. Shortly after, McKenna was signed a management contract with Q Prime. More than 40 record companies vied to sign him, with McKenna going to Columbia Records. Yeah, that's right, this kid is 18 years old, signed with Columbia Records. His new album, What Do You Think About the Car, came out this week through Columbia Records, and the album was available for first listen on NPR early in the week, and I listened to a couple tracks, and man, this kid is fucking talented. 18 years old, and he's already got a lot to live up to. And once again, that album is called What Do You Think About the Car by Declan McKenna. You guys can go check that out. I will, of course, have links in the description. And that does it for news this week. If I missed anything major, what do you think should have been brought up? And let me know. I'll let you know where you can get in touch with me at the end of the episode. Up next, we have just one really quick recommendation for you guys. I just want to give a shout out to the Baby Driver soundtrack. Baby Driver is a film by Edgar Wright, who you may know from films like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, all of these great films. He's great, and his new movie, Baby Driver, was incredibly entertaining. And the soundtrack, excuse my pun, drove this film pretty much. The soundtrack is available on Spotify. It's got some classic rock, some jazz, some soul. It's got a little bit of everything. I think you guys are really going to like it, so definitely go check out the Baby Driver soundtrack. That does it for this week's episode of The Noise in Your Head. As always, links to all of these artist pages will be posted in the description for easy access, and you should really give them a chance, because, I'm just going to start saying it at the end of every episode. There's some really, really beautiful stuff out there. And this is my attempt at sharing some things that I find beautiful, especially the new Slaughter Beach Dog EP. I think it's probably the best EP of the year. You could write to the show via Twitter at Noise and Heads. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Noise in Your Head and we pop up. You can email at thenoiseinyourhead@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram. I'm getting really good at updating the Instagram. Subscribe to the show on iTunes. That way you never miss when a new episode is released. Give me some feedback. What should I review? What should I listen to? And what direction do you think the podcast should go in? Because this is, of course, a podcast for the people. All right, that does it for me. I've been your host, Josh Timko. This week, we're going to close out the episode with the song Chemical World by Blur from the Baby Driver soundtrack. And I will see you all next week. Oh, that went well.
That was fun.
We were a little over time, but it's okay.
Sorry, guys.
Were we under an hour?
Yeah.
Because we had all that, we stopped it, but we had that chunk in the beginning.
Ooh. We had so much in the beginning.
Yeah. So much chunk in the beginning.
Oh, God. It's still recording, so we can add all this. Yes, it is.
It is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I have to
we
go
have
in there.
so much chunk at the beginning. It's not even funny.
I'm going to put that up here. So much chunk. You know what? So much chunk.
Too much chunk.
Oh, that's going to be... Let's put that on the TV.